Take This Waltz is a 2011 Canadian independent film. This is directed by Sarah Polley, and this stars Seth Rogen and Michelle Williams in some very quiet, very personal performances with a very personal and quiet direction from Sarah Polley, as she usually likes to do. Sarah Polley is a phenomenal director specifically. I think she shines that way. She's also a great actress, pretty much overall. But when she directs a film, she knows how to really make it symbolic and really make it epic in plot, essentially. Like, not necessarily like, how should I say, with massive story or dense or anything like that, but she can take a really simple concept and really make it powerful, kind of thing. I like that. And this is one of the best examples. Might be her best film, in my opinion. Have not seen Women Talking yet. I have, like, lukewarm interest in it. I'm more interested in the book, but I'll probably check it out at some time. She also has another film, which I might review at some time, called Away From Her. It's also a Canadian film. Fantastic stuff. But, sticking with this one right now, Seth Rogen, he still plays kind of a funny guy, but he's more, like, grounded fully, like, very serious, you know, indie performance kind of thing. Like, he's not being the loud, laughing, funny guy that he usually is. And Michelle Williams also plays a very down-to-earth, simple girl. Both of them are in a relationship, and this film is about relationships, especially long-term relationships, and how they evolve and what they evolve to, and how they kind of change and shape and form, and how people's feelings develop and, again, shape over the years of being together. This takes place in Toronto. A lot of it is familiar to me because I live so close to Toronto. Actually, it's funny. There's a village called Little Portugal in Toronto, and it's filled with Portuguese people, and I'm Portuguese myself. So when they're filming this film, in the background, sometimes you can hear random Joes speaking in Portuguese that have nothing to do with the scene. They're just, you know, whoever was in the background at the time. And it's kind of funny watching this movie and hear those moments, especially when you turn up the volume, and I'm like, oh, that random woman is talking about how work is going to be far from her house. Okay, that's cool. Just like neighbors and stuff. I found that hilarious. But yeah, plot-wise, what we have going on here is, well, they're a couple. They've been married for like 5 years. Michelle Williams' character, Margot, takes a trip to Nova Scotia. She is there doing some work stuff, and then on her way home, she is beside this guy who was also vacationing, and he's on the same flight. They share a cab ride home, and it ends up they literally live across the street from each other and never knew it. So it's a super ironic moment. This guy's a young, single guy, and essentially she starts to develop feelings for him, and this starts to make complications for her own life, and she doesn't want to leave her husband, who she's deeply, madly in love with, but she's falling for this guy very heavily and very fast, and this guy is, you know, charming in every way possible, and single, and has nothing to lose himself at all, and it, you know, complicates shit, kind of thing. It opens up with basically her making muffins, and the cinematography is beautiful throughout the whole film, but she's baking muffins at the beginning of the movie, right before everything happens, and it starts to go into her vacation in Nova Scotia. And there's a funny scene in Nova Scotia where her and this guy kind of get into the middle of reenaction of some, like, 18th century, 17th century, you know, basically prison reenactment scenario kind of thing. You know how they do those reenactments of Civil War and stuff like that. And this guy is, like, pretending to be whipped, and then she's called, and they're like, pretend to whip this guy. She's like, no, I don't want to do this shit. And Luke Kirby's character, Daniel, the guy she is basically neighbors with but never knew it, he's all like, put your back into it, and then she's all weirded out, and later on the plane, he happens to sit beside her, and they start to talk and get along. It's not until they take the cab ride home, like I said, that he's like, what the fuck, you live literally like 3 houses down, and then the film goes from there. They're such a hilarious couple. They're so stereotypical. The games they play with each other, they're just so goofy. They're like, I love you so much. I want to rip your face apart with a blowtorch. I love you so much. I want to like infect you with Ebola or something like that. Like you're just saying the most brutal stuff to each other as their like flirtations. Seth Rogen plays this joke with her. It's like this lifetime time thing where he tells her that there's a problem with the pipes when she takes a shower because every once in a while there will be a cold burst of water, but it's actually just him like pouring cold water over the shower as a long-term joke, which actually plays like right into the end of the movie, plot wise, and just random stuff like they'll. It just shows how like cutesy they are, and usually it'd be annoying, but it's kind of they Sarah Polley at least like directs it in such a hilarious way and believable way that I just absolutely love it. This film also plays a lot with like age and aging. Michelle Williams' character Margot senses that she's getting older. She has these like swimming pool exercise classes that she does with her friends. Sarah Silverman's in this film, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, she plays Margot's husband's sister. So Margot's sister-in-law, essentially. She goes to these pool meetings with Sarah Silverman's character, Jerry, or Geraldine. And Sarah Silverman's character, Jerry, is a recovering alcoholic, and she's 10 months sober when we meet her. And she's basically best friends with Margot. There's this really intense shower scene where basically it's just these older ladies naked, and you see a lot of bush in this movie, especially in that scene. Apparently nobody in this movie likes to shave down there because there's a lot of full frontal nudity and there's a lot of bush scenes that go along with the full frontal nudity, so it's pretty hilarious. And they are having a conversation where, you know, the ladies in the shower are like, one of them is like, I like new things. New things are shiny. And then the older lady is like, new things get old. And then Sarah Silverman's like, yeah, but, you know, new things do get old, just like the old things get old. And it's just this whole, like, human condition conversation. And I know I'm selling this movie like a motherfucker. It probably sounds so depressing, but it's charming and it's cute. Like, it's a realistic look into somebody else's relationship, like a relationship that, you know, two people have been in for so long that they complement everything about each other and know everything about each other. There's even this anniversary dinner where they go every single year for this anniversary to the Royal, which is an actual movie theater in Toronto. And afterwards, they go to this restaurant and they're eating, and Margot's like, say something. And Seth Rogen's character, Lou, is just like, what do I say? There's nothing to say. We know each other. We know everything about each other. I mean, we don't go out for dinner to get to know each other like our first date kind of thing. And she's like, well, then what do we do? What do we go out for dinner for? And she's having these like complex emotions, and Seth Rogen's like, we go out for nice food, man, whatever. He's such a simple guy, which is interesting to think about too, because with the whole restaurant scene, with the whole connection thing, there's this film that's one of my favorite films of all time called Shame from 2011, starring Michael Fassbender. And in that movie, he's on a date with a woman, and he's talking about, like, you know, why do people even go long term? Like, you know, they sit across the table from each other and they have no idea what to talk about. And the woman's like, well, maybe that's because they're connected. And it's just like this scene. They have nothing to talk about, but that's because they're connected and they have a life together. And that comes with so many pros, and that's what everybody aspires to have and be, is in love. But it also comes with its cons because, you know, over time, things do become mundane, things do become routine, and that just kills all the adventure of the relationship. That's why it's extremely important to continue having adventure in a relationship, because as this film proves, Daniel across the street his life is filled with adventure. His job is like pushing this cart, like kind of like a taxi, except he pushes it or pulls it essentially, while the people sit in the back. And he's just like he's full of energy and full of life, and Seth Rogen is all chill. He's writing a cookbook, so he's always cooking chicken constantly. That's like all day long. He's basically cooking different chicken recipes to kind of learn how to write this cookbook to get experience on it, kind of thing. So that's his entire focus right now is cooking chicken, and this makes Margot get fed up as well, where she's clearly wanting, you know, livelihood in her relationship. She's missing that spark. She's missing that that enthusiasm and that passion for life that they had kind of in their honeymoon phase, that everybody has in their honeymoon phase, and that's what she's seeing in Luke Kirby's character across the street, Daniel. And he's not like the asshole kind of character. I mean, like I was saying, he has nothing to lose, so obviously he's falling for Margot just as hard as she's falling for him, and because he has nothing to lose, he doesn't hold his flirt back whatsoever. She's like, yeah, we should go out for coffee sometime, and he's like, is that a should-vitation or an invitation? Because, you know, should-vitations are something that people say that they should do but never actually end up doing. So this is an invitation, and he knows exactly how to push her buttons in the good way and, like, get her, you know, continuing on falling for him, which, you know, it's not the best thing to do, but like I said, he's not the one with something to lose. And even he brings her home one night, and she sits on his bed, and she's like, what are you going to do now? And he's like, well, I'm not going to do anything. It's up to you to make a decision to do something or not. So he knows where to hold himself on the line, although he does still cross it a lot. But, you know, he's also only human. You know, at one point, Seth Rogen's character, Lou, invites him over. He's, you know, oblivious. He doesn't know. And Margot Robbie's character, Margot, Michelle Williams' character, Margot, doesn't cheat at all in this movie. She doesn't make any moves. She doesn't, I mean, they don't even kiss until the end of the movie when she actually leaves Lou. And Lou handles it more well than I can ever see somebody handle a situation like this, to be honest. There's this whole montage with basically Lou's expressions, and it's like 2 minutes long, and it's just him dealing with the moment, and it'll like kind of cut frames. So in one he'll be kind of crying but kind of like laughing in one, and then crying more, and then saying something, and it just goes on in showing different emotions at once from Lou. After like he kind of had the realization that Margot has feelings developing very strong and fast for this neighbor that she never knew was a neighbor, kind of thing. Margot's character is also, like I said, very believable. She's a very simple woman, but she's a woman who gets so caught up in her emotions a lot. There's this one argument that she gets into with Lou in the kitchen, which I always love this scene because it always makes me think, and you know, because I'm looking at it in a male perspective, and to me, I don't understand what she means by her emotions, but at the same time, I kind of do. It's weird. He's cooking chicken, and she comes behind him and tries to give him a hug and basically seduce him, and he's like, babe, I'm busy, like, please, can we do this another time? And so then she walks away, and she's like, you know, you have any idea how much courage that takes? And she breaks down, and she's like, it takes all the courage in the world, and then you prove me every time that it wasn't even worth it, that I was wrong to do it, because like it wasn't even worth the courage at all, because you proved me right, that I should have been afraid the whole time and not even tried. And it's funny because Seth Rogen, the way he delivers, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just making chicken. You're always making chicken. Yeah. But it's just, I just don't get, like, the whole it takes courage to seduce your husband. Like, women are very, like, strong in their emotions. I get that. I realize that, or I've realized that growing up. And they feel emotions deeply. So, in one way, I like, get how the rejection would feel, but it's not even a rejection, and it's just kind of something that's part of life. It shouldn't take a massive amount of courage to seduce somebody you've known forever. Like, in my male perspective, but I'm looking at it from a male mind. So to me, it's like whatever. Like there's no courage to it. It certainly doesn't take any courage to seduce a woman I've been dating for 5 years. Let's get that damn straight. I don't sweat on my way home from work. It's like, oh shit. Do I hug her? Do I kiss her on the left cheek or the right cheek? Do I fucking like put two arms around, one arm around? Oh, does she want flowers? Does she want chocolate? Like, we don't do that shit. So it's what it fucking is. But and Margot's a good woman too. Like, she literally does not cheat on Lou at all in this movie. Now, after that whole back and forth with Lou's emotions and that whole scene where he basically literally lets her go and he accepts what it is, because he even admits that he kind of had a feeling that things were heading this way, but he kind of ignored it and was hoping it would just go away, but it didn't. She goes and then she gets with Lou. Sorry, not Lou. Lou's her husband. She gets with Daniel, the guy who was across the street. And then there's this other montage of them basically... it's basically a fast-forward version of the honeymoon phase. So it takes place in this loft, and as the loft is getting bigger and bigger with things, as if they're moving into it, it goes through this like montage of sex scenes, which some are pretty graphic. So they start fucking, and then they start fucking in different positions, and on the couch instead of the bed, and yada yada. It just goes on as if like time is going by. And then they start having threesomes with, there's a scene with them and another woman, and then there's a scene with them and another guy, and then it slowly starts to go back to mundane and routine, which is the same thing she was having with Lou. And even she turns around to him after this montage and she says to Daniel, "I love you." And he kind of looks at her and he just kisses her, and he says, "I love you too, baby." Whereas Lou, the relationship she had with Seth Rogen's character, was so like, he was a funny guy, he would always make jokes and stuff like that, where Daniel's a much more serious, down-to-earth person, so he's not that funny, jokey kind of guy, and she starts to miss that relationship and realize what she had with Lou. And it just, it shows how, you the choice to stay, like, how should I word this? You can't expect to have the exact same relationship you have with each individual is so unique, and the grass is greener on the other side always. That's probably the best way to put it. The grass always looks greener on the other side, looking at it, even though it may not necessarily be. And she really does. As soon as she like goes for Daniel, that's when everything, one after the other, she starts to realize how much good and how much passion she had with Lou. And it's great. It's great the way Sarah Polley directed it and wrote this film, because it's just so damn realistic. For the most part of the last few years of my life, I have been in the shorter relationship things or side of things. So I haven't really been in like a long-term relationship in a bit, but it's extremely realistic what they show with Margot and Lou's relationship, and the realism of it, and the way it's written in the movie, kind of thing. I know I lost my train of thought in my words there, but it is a very realistic portrayal of everything. And Jerry's character, or Geraldine, Jerry for short, Sarah Silverman's character, is really good too. Like I said, she's the recovering alcoholic, but then there's a relapse scene with her at the end of the movie, essentially. And this is where it's hard not to laugh at just because of the situation, but realistically it's a really sad situation. She left her daughter behind. She disappeared for the day. The husband called the cops. She shows up driving, wasted, and she went to buy chickens or something. She went to buy eggs she went to buy chickens for her kids or something like that. Something dumb. And she comes home and everybody's like panicked, where the hell did she go with the daughter? And Lou, and this, I think like I said, I think Geraldine is Lou's sister. So Lou calls Margot. This is when they're split up. This is when they're separated, and she's living with Daniel now. Calls her over because Geraldine had a really great relationship with Margot, and Margot comes over, and then Sarah Silverman's character Jerry gives this like drunken like speech, but it kind of like wraps the whole point and message of the film home. And she starts to tell like to Margot like, you know, you're really fucked up like what you did. Like, don't you realize that you think I'm the, you know, the bad one, the alcoholic, the weird one, the messed up one? You think my life's so fucked? Like, we're essentially doing the same thing. And she's like, you know, life has a gap in it. It just does. This is one of her big quotes. Life has a gap in it. It just does. You don't go crazy trying to fill it. You don't go crazy trying to fill it like some lunatic or something, along those lines, paraphrasing. And she's essentially right, whereas she's, you know, burying her problems with booze. Margot's burying her problems with, you know, some fantasy of excitement with this new guy Daniel. And yeah, it's great and hunky dory for a while, but it just dips into the exact same thing with a guy that she had less chemistry with. So, you know, there was the desire of, you know, a new, brand new, shiny kind of experience, but it didn't have that payoff like she experienced with Lou. And these are like the biggest, damnedest life decisions that we are forced to make through life, is like, you're always thinking, did I make the right choice? And, you know, usually you only get one, right? Because in a situation like this with Lou's and Margot's, it's like you leave and there's some pros and cons to it. It's loaded. Or you stay and there's also different pros and cons to it. So, you know, we get, and I'm a huge fan of this, especially with my friggin' OCD and like anxiety and stuff. It's like, what's the right choice? Like, you know, it overwhelms a person. You know, when you get stuck in your head and it's like, what do I do? Because it feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. But and of course Lou, even when they're separated, knows exactly how to get into Margot's heart like a sneaky little bastard. She leaves, and it's a great conversation with them too, because she has some kind of hope and glimmer that she can maybe get back to that old life. And he's like, you know, some things people do, they stick. And then he's like, Margot, you didn't want to have this conversation then. I really don't feel like having this conversation now. And it really hits her hard. And she's like, yeah, of course, it's no problem. And then she leaves crying. And he gets up and he's like, hey, Margot, I just got this new melon baller. I'd love to grind your eyes out with it or something like that. Or scoop your eyes out with it. Something like flirty like they used to do. And of course, this like pierces her heart like crazy. That's why I said a sneaky bastard, because he shouldn't be playing with her emotions like that, but he knows exactly how to. Yeah, it's a heartbreaking film a lot of times, but it's done in such a sweet way and a symbolic way and a clever, enjoyable way, where it's not just sad. It's not a sappy, heartbreaking film. It's got its charm to it, and it's loaded with it. And like I said, Sarah Polley really knows how to frickin' deliver a great independent film. And I think I mentioned this already, but it's distributed by Mongrel Media, which I know they do a lot of international films and a lot of independent films and really good ones. And this is one of Sarah Polley's best works, easily. And like I said, if you're Canadian, or if you know Toronto well, or the Southern Ontario kind of vibe, it's got a lot of that. It's got a lot of Toronto charm, you could say. There's a scene with her and Daniel where they're doing a theme park ride. Not really a theme park, but it's like this individual kind of whirly ride kind of thing. And she takes this with Daniel, Luke Kirby's character, and it's playing Video Killed the Radio Star in the background. And it's all like this like very flashy kind of romance scene going on while they're in the ride, and she's yelling, screaming, and like laughing, and they're all having like this romantic Hallmark moment. But then at the end of the ride, when it's done, like the music just abruptly stops and the lights abruptly stop, and then they're getting off the ride and everything looks so boring and mundane. I don't know if like all that flashy visuals, like video killed the radio, whatever was going in her head and she was imagining it or not. But I liked how they play that, because the end of the movie, she takes the ride by herself, and it does the same thing, except she's alone this time instead of with Daniel. So it kind of had that little bookend kind of feel. I enjoyed that. So there's 2 points that I totally wanted to make, but of course I got distracted and forgot to mention them. This happens a lot when I review, but these points I really wanted to drive home, especially with some things that I talked about. First one is being the sexual escapades that I was talking about with the segments with Margot and Daniel in that loft scene. Um, I don't know, I'm so mixed on it because it kind of left me with it. It kind of felt like a sour note, and it left me with like a bad taste in my mouth. Just the way it was played out, because it also it didn't answer some. It left me with questions, and it didn't answer those questions. And that just left me kind of frustrated. Like all these, adventures, especially sexual escapades and stuff like that. Are these things that she's had with Lou before? Did she never have them with Lou, and Daniel just brought it out of her? Was she never able to experience these things in her relationship with Lou because Lou was more boring and down to earth, never wanted to have these adventures? Is it? Yeah, I guess people experience different things with different people and feel different emotions around different people. But I can tell you one thing's for certain: if I was dating a girl and she wanted to do something with somebody else other than myself, whatever it was, doesn't mean it have to be sexual. I mean, could be take a vacation or something like that. I'd be pretty fucking pissed. Second thing is relating to the argument that they had in the kitchen where Margot was talking about how hard it is to seduce you kind of thing. There's a scene earlier which is totally hypocritical of Margot as well, where she's wrestling with Lou, and Lou basically starts to kiss her, and she says oh, please don't kiss me while calling me baby at the same time. She's kind of making up all these rules while he's trying to flirt with her, and it's totally killing the vibe. And that, along with her getting mad at Lou for not flirting along with her in that kitchen, it's you kind of did the same thing there. Now at least Margot realizes it, and she does feel she realizes how she would feel if the situation was reversed, and she does apologize to Lou and everything. But I just kind of found that a really, really hypocritical moment, and wanted to talk about those scenes contradicting each other kind of thing. An actress is in here that I only realized for the first time is also in Empire of Dirt, which I reviewed on the channel very recently. Cool to recognize her because I've seen this movie before, but I didn't tie that together, that it was the same actress. So I liked seeing that. I think I pretty much mentioned everything else, and I hear a lot of people coming in. So I'll stop this review there because I rambled on enough already. So subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.